Oh, nice, nice, nice. Okay. Welcome. Welcome back to the podcast, Beyond Balance. If we haven't met before, my name is Catherine Zack, and I am a mother. I am a former corporate lawyer turned meditation teacher. And of course, these are just the ways I might introduce myself by my titles. And so it's not everything, but it's some kind of reference point to kind of give us context for each other. And I hope with these episodes, I can keep giving you some more context and in your comments and in your participation as listeners and really co-creators of this conversation. You keep telling me more, you keep sharing more with me about who you are and how you're showing up today. So this is the first official episode of the Beyond Balance podcast after a little introduction to launch this project. And I had a really kind of beautifully scripted arc for the first, let's say, 10 or so episodes of this podcast, but it's a living and breathing thing because it's a conversation. And so I always want to make room for the kind of real life moments where I'm learning things myself that I feel kind of ready and integrated to share with you, which is a long way of saying, let's start here. I thought we would start here. And it's this: I'm tired, and maybe you're tired too. In fact, it seems like there's this collective exhaustion that we all kind of feel. And maybe it's been going on for as long as you can remember, but I'll just give us a starting point for this particular form of collective exhaustion, let's say since March 2020. And prolonged exhaustion in any one of us can bring us to a place where it feels like we're just burnt out. And a definition that I like to work with when it comes to burnout, because I feel like it's a word that we toss around a lot and that we have our own kind of understanding of, perhaps. But here's the definition in case you don't. Burnout is continually being asked to give what it is that you no longer have left to give. Continually being asked to give what you no longer have left to give. And that could be your time, your energy, your attention, your money, like literally what you can hold in your hands at any one moment, that being asked to give more than you have the capacity to give. And often it's us that is doing that asking, right? We set up expectations for ourselves about what we should be able to give at any moment. And when we don't meet that, it can feel like failure. And if we keep trying to do that, then it can bring us to a place of burnout. And should is a word that we'll spend a lot of time unpacking in this podcast. But, for me, two things I think about shoulds is I do it a lot. I'll just start there, still myself, but should is kind of the place where all good intentions go to die. Like we think, oh, that would be nice. I'd love to do that. Maybe like, I'd love to add a meditation practice or something to my day because I think it could help me take better care of myself. And then as soon as we start thinking like I should do that, it's often the time where, our actions just come right off the track. So should is the place where all good intentions seem to go to die. And also should is a breeding ground for stress. Right? It's a breeding ground for stress. And and stress, of course, is something that is very much a part of that feeling of burnout. And another way perhaps of thinking of it is just thinking about like a cup of water or something. And if you're continuing to drink from that cup, even after it's empty, that can be what the feeling of burnout is. And I love the image of a cup that we drink from, because so much of the way that I feel and I teach and I think about getting myself and my students back from the edge of burnout is like, how are we going to fill your cup? How are we going to refill that cup? Or how are we going to change the shape of the cup? or the amount that it can hold at any one time. So just thinking for yourself, like, how full is my cup? And what might I do to begin to fill it up? And I'll give you again just another example to think about this idea of burnout that comes from my own life. I just had a child as I'm recording this episode 8 weeks ago. My second baby, sweet little Georgie. And an example of burnout for me would be if I was asking myself to do as much for my work, to show up for my work in the same way that I was when I only had one child, right? Or before I had children, right? That's asking more of myself than I have to give. And so, but I do that, right? I still think like I could pull it all off with an 8-week-old baby at home. But I know that if I keep doing that, if I keep asking myself to give what I don't really have to give, I will absolutely end up in a place of burnout. And this burnout isn't just simple math. In fact, it's more of an art, I think, than a science, because so much of what seems like it's part of the equation of burnout is actually not quantifiable. It's not something, right, that you can put a number around. Like, how much energy does it take to actually raise a child? I can't give you a number for that. Or even for ourselves, like, can you put a number on how much it takes to navigate the emotional landscape of your life? No. So there are parts of our lives that we just can't put a number on, which is why balance, the idea of balance too, as some kind of trackable equation that we can track on a spreadsheet or with an app or several apps, or by looking at our ROI deliverables, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work because we can't put a number. And thank goodness, really, we can't put a number on all the parts that make up our life. So I'm going to start with the assumption that you're either burnt out too, or hovering somewhere on that edge, or maybe you're just overwhelmed. Maybe that feels like a better word for it. Overwhelmed in some parts of your life and all of your life, or maybe just like me, kind of plain exhausted. So if any of those words, burnt out, overwhelmed, exhausted, if sound curious to you, sound interesting to you, sound relevant to you, listening. If that's the case, keep listening, and I will share with you 3 seeds of intention, 3 kind of seeds of a mindset shift that you might start to plant for yourself. And then also not just the mindset shifts, but some actions that you might take, or some practices that you might incorporate into your day-to-day life, so that you can start to see a shift on the outside, right? So that we start with the mindset shifts. We start with the kind of seeds of intention because it helps us to change the game of the internal narrative. That storyline that's always going on in your head. But that's only half the battle, certainly. And we need the kind of outward demonstration of it, whether it's a practice that helps us embody that shift, or it's an action that we take. And so often we skip over the mindset part and go right to the actions, which is why things like, hacks don't really work or last, very long. We'll talk more about that in the life of this podcast too. But just know that each of the 3 things that I'll share with you today have both that like beginning seed that you can plant in your mind and your heart, and then outer actions you can take to start to bring it into reality in your life, for it to start to shift the game of your everyday. And these 3 starting points came to me specifically in the middle of the night a week or 2 ago, which is again why I said I decided to start here, despite my best laid plans for what this episode was going to be. Because this came to me in the middle of the night a few weeks ago. You see, I was up with my baby, my newborn baby, and it was one of those moments where I was just exhausted, like pulling really deep to see what it is that I had left to give, to nurse this child, to rock this child, to soothe this child, to get this child back to sleep, when really I just wanted to go back to bed. And it was my turn. It was my turn to be with the baby at that moment. So maybe you're not up with a baby in the middle of the night, but you're up working or with work to do, or perhaps you're up with thoughts or anxieties or worries that are keeping you awake at night. I know that is often the case for myself too. And these moments can feel pretty isolating, right? We're up in the middle of the night. We're like, I might be the only one. It feels like you're the only one. So here's a kind of another pro tip I'll add in is when you do find yourselves in those moments of isolation, like, is this just me? Is it just this hard for me? Start to see if you can think about anyone else who might also be up in the middle of the night. Right. And that's what I was doing in this moment. And sometimes I just think like of all the other parents who might also be caregiving in that moment, or all the other people who are, worried about something lying awake in the middle of the night as well in their beds too. So maybe one of those includes one of you. Maybe you can identify with that. Maybe I was thinking of you. But sometimes I think about someone I actually know too in the middle of the night to feel less alone when I'm up with my child or with my worries. And on this particular night, I was thinking about my youngest sister, who also just had a baby, her first. And I was thinking about her and wondering if she was feeling exhausted or overwhelmed in that moment too, or perhaps in the neighborhood of burnout, hanging out there. And I thought to myself, what do I want her to know? What do I want her to know in case she too is exhausted in this moment? And here are the 3 things that I came up with, and I want to share them with you too. So the first thing I wanted her to know, and I want you to know when you're hovering on the edge of overwhelm, exhaustion, or burnout, is this: you are doing a good job, and it really is this hard. Whatever circumstance it is for you, you're doing a good job. And yes, it really is this hard. And I'll kind of keep going with that, because what I was really thinking about was that it's really this hard, and no amount of technology can make it easier or totally easy, because of the essential tug of what it takes, this human being thing that we show up as in everything that we do, this being a person thing. It's tough. But I think especially in the case of technology, we imagine, or we want it to be able to solve everything for us, despite that essential tug of being human in all that we do. And technology works for a lot of things. It actually takes care of a lot of things. Like, it made my coffee this morning, and I'm grateful for that. But in the instances where technology doesn't get us all the way there, it's easy to think like, oh, well, that must mean that I'm a failure. Right. And I'll just stay with the newborn example. Like, even if I had this like perfectly advanced techie bassinet to put my child in, something that like rocked or vibrated or, I don't know, did magic tricks in the middle of the night, it's not going to replace the fact that I still have to get up. Right. And that I will feel the way that I feel when I get up, tired, overwhelmed, exhausted, like I just want to go back to bed. Technology can't fix that part. Right. That through all of it, like the situation at hand might still be asking a tremendous amount from you. And if that feels like a lot, you're just not a failure. You're human. And you're doing a good job. And yes, it really is this hard. And so I guess the action for you is just to pause in this moment. We'll actually do that together and see if in that quiet space you can identify one place in your life where you feel like you're doing a bad job or like it's just really hard and you're wondering if it's just this hard for you, or gosh, I have all this this tech or a virtual assistant or something and it's still hard. I want you to see if you can touch that space in your own life and maybe come up with a bit of generosity for yourself, whether it's that phrase like I am doing a good job or whatever sounds right to you. So let's take the next few moments to pause. Um, Maybe not if you're driving, but otherwise you can close your eyes if that feels okay to you. Or just soften your gaze so you take in less of what's happening around you. You might find a moment just to kind of naturally move some part of you where you tend to hold on, like hold tension or feel stuck. Like you can open your mouth, move your jaw around, relax the muscles of your face. You can move your shoulders, your head around your neck. Just see if you can soften somewhere, anywhere. And you can actually take your hand or two hands and bring it to some part of you. Again, that could use some extra tenderness. So you might rub your temples with your fingers, trace the jawline, rub your neck, rub your shoulders, even wrap your own arms around yourself. See if you can get your fingers back toward your shoulder blades. Give your upper back a massage. And really, if you're doing that action, you've kind of found yourself in the place of giving yourself a hug, this kind of expression, this embodied expression of taking care of yourself, of showing up for yourself, of nurturing yourself. So take a few moments for that, the warmth of your own hands on some part of your body. And see if you can let whatever part of your body that you're touching start to soften and receive that warmth. And for a moment, perhaps even feel good. Feel good, that embodied quality of I'm doing a good job. And you can use your breath to help you tap into that as well. You might take a deeper breath in through your nose and even hold your breath at the very top of fullness. And when you need to let it go, you can open your mouth. You can exhale, exhale, exhale. A few times like that. And even say to yourself as you inhale, I am doing. And as you open your mouth to exhale, a good job. Inhale, I am doing. And exhale, a good job. And then you can keep that going on your own, that breath, maybe those words, and just sit with that question for the next few moments. Like, what place in your life could use this reminder, could use this little flip of the script, of the internal story you're telling yourself about it? What are the specifics of that situation for you? And could you just in this moment offer yourself a little more generosity, even compassion, and believe for just this moment, even that you are doing a good job. And yes, it is just that hard. So take a few more quiet moments for this. And perhaps one final deep breath in through your nose. And then open the mouth. Let go of heat. Let go of exhaustion. Let go of the day or whatever you've been carrying around on this day. You can shift again. You can slowly open your eyes if you close them and come back just enough from that kind of extra bit of space and grace that I hope you were able to give to yourself for 5 moments, not even. And now that didn't, of course, solve everything. I know that, but perhaps you do notice some kind of shift. And you're starting to get curious, perhaps, about how it might feel in your life if you practiced giving yourself that kind of space and grace more regularly, maybe on your hardest days, maybe even every day. You made space for just 5 moments out of a busy 24 hours to offer yourself some reassurance, the warmth of your hands, the fullness of your breath, and a quiet reminder like, I'm doing a good job. I'm okay. We're okay. Just for some area of your life, even just one tiny, tiny area of your life. And also the reminder that, yeah, some of this really is just that hard. So that's the first seed that I want to plant for us all. I'll include myself in that, and a little practice to help you access that seed on a more regular basis, just that pause. And we'll keep going now with another seed for you to plant, a second seed for us to plant. And it is this another phrase. And what these phrases are, you might know them as affirmations. You might have heard of the word mantra. And mantra, as I've come to understand that word in its original meaning in Sanskrit, is something like this. It's a mind skill. Mind skill, mantra, mano means mind, and tra is like a root of like skill, mind skill. And really it's just a way to shift the inner narrative, which is a lot of where this work begins. Kind of you're going down your pathway of like, I'm doing a bad job, I'm doing a bad job. And then this mantra comes in, no, I am doing a good job. And could that be like a little trick for you to just either stop, slow down, or pause in that inner story of like, I'm actually not doing a good job. And then perhaps in that pause, you can begin to make another choice, right? Or do something differently on the outside, or even just shift the way that you feel. So the second seed that I'll plant is another kind of affirmation or mantra that you might try saying to yourself. And it is this: everything is not mine to do. Everything is not mine to do. And I heard that phrase about a year ago. I think it was December 2020. And I was in some gathering, or maybe it was actually on the podcast On Being, which is a fantastic resource, On Being with Krista Tippett. And someone said that phrase, everything is not mine to do. And I needed to hear that because I was feeling like I had to do everything. Like it was up to me to keep all the trains running. And that is a common feeling, even if it's not true. And this is why, thoughts are so powerful is that we often just believe them. We believe that all of our thoughts are true. And so I really did think in that moment, like everything I had to take care of myself. And so I offer that back to you now. Everything is not mine to do. And if you have trouble believing that, you might add on, everything is not mine to do right now, right now, right? Because there's only so much that we can do at any one time. And, you can use this phrase as a way to stop the inner spiral of a narrative that is telling you that you should be doing more, right? There's that word should again, or you should be doing it all. And also, a way to kind of turn this into an action item for yourself is to use that phrase to edit your to-do list. Right? I don't know about you. I am a person that writes a really, 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 really long to-do list still. Like every day, I think I can accomplish 1,000 things, right? 1,000 things. And I have to stop myself with a phrase like that, or kind of some other way I can be a little bit more generous with myself and remember like that's unrealistic, and everything is not mine to do. So if you're a person who writes to-do list where there's so many boxes, there's no hope of checking them all off. And trust me, we'll spend a lot of time talking about and shifting some behaviors around that box checking way to approach our days in the life of this podcast too. But for now, you might just see if you can use that phrase to maybe simply shift the internal script that you've got going on in your head, or to literally edit your to-do list. And I'll keep going with this as an action to implement. You might look at that to-do list and say, right, everything is not mine to do. Everything is not mine to do right now. And also, I know for some of us, when we do shorten our to-do lists or scrap things from our to-do list, there can be this feeling, this sense of like, oh man, I'm just doing the bare minimum. I'm just getting the bare minimum done. And there's something inherently lacking about that phrase. Like we automatically feel bad about it when we use it. Just got the bare minimum done there. When really it could be getting the bare minimum done is what's keeping you from burnout, because you're only giving what you have left to give in that moment. And what a revolution, right? And instead we turn it on its head as something that we feel bad about. Like I'm just doing the bare minimum. So, editing your to-do list with everything is not mine to do. And when you feel like that just feels like the bare minimum and it feels bad, try this instead. Maybe it's not the bare minimum. Maybe it's actually the essence of the thing. Like what is essential? What is essential? And then you can flip that a bit and say, no, 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 no. I'm not just doing the bare minimum. Come from a place of fullness instead and say, I am good at taking care of what is essential. I'm good at figuring out what's essential. Right. So you might look at your to-do list and say, no, 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 no. I'm not scrapping this down to the bare minimum. I am refining. I am exercising wise discernment to say, actually, this is what is essential. These actions are essential to shape this day and my schedule and what is realistic in this moment, so that I am not asking myself to give what I don't have to give. And I'm doing a good job at tending to the essence of my life in this moment. And I'll pull an example from my life right now. There are so many things that I would love to accomplish and achieve and arrive at in my professional life right now. There are so many things. There are books I want to write. There are, programs to be launched. More on that coming later. But, I'm home with a young baby right now. And so that's a huge part of the essence of my life in this moment, is taking care of my children. And when I can align my to-do list to hold that essence, right, then it feels so much better. And I'm going to be a hell of a lot more likely to get it done. Right. And to be present and satisfied with that essential doing, with that essential tending to the essential things of my life. And, even this podcast is an example because I have a craving in my work. I have a need in my work to show up and teach and connect. And that's what this has given me is that ability to show up and teach and connect. So it's essential. It feels essential. It doesn't feel like the bare minimum. It doesn't feel like, just kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, even though there's, of course, so many things I'd love to do with this podcast one day, just showing up and sitting here on a Sunday morning with my children out of the house for an hour or so to talk to you. That feels like the essence. So not the bare minimum. Everything is not mine to do. I am good at tending to what is essential in my life right now. So that's your second seed to plant in your own life, a tool for you to edit your to-do list on any given day, your schedule on any given day, and how you're shaping your life right now. It's a powerful one. It works. It usually stops me in my tracks. It usually works for me. So if you try it and it does work for you, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love a comment or a message or something. Let me know how it's going and pass it along. If it works for you too, pass it to a friend who might need to hear it as well. And we'll move on to the third seed to plant in this moment if you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed or exhausted. And this one might be a bit of a shocker, might be a bit of a disappointment, or it might feel like freedom. It might be a little bit of a disappointment because I know I do this too. Like I want to listen to the podcast episode or find that list of 3 things that I can do that will really change everything. I want to believe that that's true, but it's not. And so this is what I want to share with you instead. You can't have it all. Shocker, right? Disappointing, right? You can't have it all, and I can't have it all either. Right? Or maybe that feels like freedom because it's starting to feel like freedom for me. Because here's the flip side. You can't have it all, but you can have this. And this is everything that you have in your life right now, presently in this moment. Right? Maybe there are things that you have left to achieve or accomplish or that you want, dreams or literal things that are on layaway in your life in this moment. And maybe you can't have them right now, but you can have this. You can have what is right in front of you. And I can't take credit for that structure of a concept because I heard it myself in a poem that is called You Can't Have It All by Barbara Ross. And I heard it recently and it saved me. It stopped me in my tracks. I was feeling like I wanted so much of what I didn't have on that particular day or series of days or series of weeks. And what that does is it takes us to a place in our lives, whether it's some point in the past where maybe we did have what we're seeking right now, or some point in the maybe far away future that may or may not come to pass, that we're kind of suspended in that space of future wanting or future planning or future worry. And what all that does is it keeps us from what is right in front of us, from what is happening in the present moment. And really, that's where our life plays out. So we're missing our life when we spend all of our time in that space of like, I wish I could have it all. And that includes things that are not in front of me. I do this a lot too. So I want to share with you just a few lines from that poem itself, because it helped me tremendously. And you can link to the full version of it. And I love poetry as a way to kind of tackle my problem of wanting things to be balanced, of chasing that myth of balance, because poetry gives word and form to the stuff that we can't put a number on, right? Poetry is one of those ways that we can just actually describe and touch in with the parts of our life that are actually not quantifiable. So a plug for poetry there. And just listen. That's all you have to do is listen. A few lines from this poem, You Can't Have It All by Barbara Ross. You can't have it all, but you can have the fig tree and its fat leaves like clown hands gloved with green. You can have the touch of a single 11-year-old finger on your cheek, waking you at 1 a.m. to say, the hamster is back. You can have the purr of the cat and the soulful look of the black dog, the look that says, if I could bite every sorrow until it fled. And when it is August, you can have it August, and abundantly so. You can have your grandfather sitting on the side of your bed, at least for a while. You can have clouds and letters, the leaping of distances, and Indian food with yellow sauce like sunrise. You can't count on grace to pick you out of a crowd, but here is your friend to teach you how to high jump, how to throw yourself over the bar backwards until you learn about love, about sweet surrender. And here are periwinkles, buses that kneel, farms in the mind as real as Africa. And when adulthood fails you, you can still summon the memory of the black swan on the pond of your childhood, the rye bread with peanut butter and bananas your grandmother gave you while the rest of the family slept. There is the voice you can still summon at will, like your mother's. It will always whisper, you can't have it all, but there is this. Wow. So what I've taken to in my own moments of really wanting it all, or really wanting what I don't have, what's not right in front of me, of fixating on all I have left to accomplish or achieve, I start to write a poem, a bad poem, but a poem nonetheless in my mind. Right? I can't have it all, but I can have this. I could have the 5 dimples, one each at the base of the finger on the chubby hand of my baby. I can have those 5 dimples right now and hold them in my own hand. And so it's like that. It's a reminder to bring me back to the present, which is, again, the only moment that life is actually happening, right? The only moment that this life is actually happening is right now. It brings me back to the stage of presence, which of course is the stage on which life is playing out. And so I offer this, my friends, to you as a tool perhaps as well. The next time you find yourself either longing for what you have yet to accomplish or achieve, or beating yourself up because you don't have it all, right? You're not doing it all. You're not doing it all at once perfectly. The next time you find yourself in that kind of rhetoric or space, see if you can write a poem for yourself, to yourself. You might even write it down. You might even do this daily. I'm kind of in a practice of that right now, of writing these poems daily to myself, like little love letters to my life as it exists in this moment, in its perfectly imperfect way, with too little sleep and lots of noise in my house. Lots of time on the things that are essential in my life right now. And yeah, not a lot of time for the other things, and that's okay. So yeah, I'll leave you there to write your own little poem. If you do, send me a copy. Let me know how it goes. And also I'll leave us here because I'm going to pick up on these 3 threads and share more about them, and also add a few more to this list of your little toolkit in case of emergency, of burnout or exhaustion or overwhelm, in a virtual workshop that I'm doing on December 3rd. And it'll be live for those of you who can make it live, and recorded because life happens. And it's a Beyond Balance workshop, burnout edition, with again, these 3 tips and more texture on these tips and how we can experience them in our own life, and a few more that I'll add to the list. And all of it in this workshop is wrapped up into a 90-minute restorative yoga practice, right? Because we're tired. We're tired. And this is the kind of multitasking that I love, to gather more information and have it be suspended in a restorative yoga practice where you can show up if you're tired. You don't need to be able to touch your toes for this kind of yoga. I had a student of mine once describe the restorative yoga class, the restorative yoga practice, in a way that I will never forget, in a way that I love. She said, we show up, Kath, and we make these little beds and we take these little naps. And that's what this workshop will be. So you can gather the cushions from your couch or the pillows off your bed. We'll make little beds together, take little naps, and build out a toolkit of essential practices that you can use in case of emergency, in case of burnout, in case of overwhelm, in case of exhaustion, to come back to yourself, to fill up your cup. And that's happening December 3rd. And you can sign up. You can find the info at katherinezack.com/beyondbalance. I would love to have you there. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to get to meet some of you there or see some old friends there. December 3rd, the workshop, Beyond Balance Burnout Edition. Thank you so much for listening. If you know someone else who might need to hear this episode, pass it along. Subscribe so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And I'll see you right back here next time. Thanks for listening.